we got them from the bank. So QuickBooks will reconcile whatever that transaction is because it received a match from the bank. We're not going to do that at this time though, so we're going to go ahead and select no. All right, we do have another poll for us here. We just want to know what the main topics are that you're interested in. So if you could go ahead and fill this out for us and go ahead and just make a selection. Should be coming up right now for us. Awesome, thank you all so much. We're going to go ahead and move on. So now we have our bank account set up here for Big Bank. The next thing that we're going to want to do is set up some vendors. So we can do that a couple different ways. So we'll go ahead and close this screen. And escape will close any open screen that you have. And we'll go to vendors, and then we can come to the vendor center. Now, we can see that our vendor center is completely blank, but if we had vendors, we would add them here. And then we would see the list of vendors under the name here. We would see the balance total here, and then if there was any attachments associated with those vendors. So if we had maybe a picture of the building where they were located or something like that, we could attach that picture. So we'll go ahead and add a vendor. So if we right click, we can go to new vendor, or up across the top in the ribbon here, we can see there is a new vendor button that we can select as well. So if we select that, we'll hit new vendor. All right, and now we'll go ahead and create our vendor. So now we have Big John's Vendor Emporium. And now let's say that we want to call that company name. Okay, so we have Big John's Vendor Emporium. So now we have the company name. So the vendor name is the unique ID that this vendor is going to be associated with. So we cannot have another Big John's Vendor Emporium within the list because it would be a duplicated name. So for the company name, maybe we don't want all of it, we just want Big John's. So we'll just type Big John's. And then we get additional information here that we can track for this specific vendor. So if we wanted to, we could put in the main phone number, the work phone number, the website, mobile, things like that. And then down here, we can add the address if we wanted to for Big John's. So if we click the little edit screen, we get address, and we'll just make up an address. And we'll say that's 1211 Main Street, and we'll say that that is located in Portland, Oregon, and we'll say that the code 9. And then if we wanted the country, we could add a country here. So we'll just say USA, and then if we wanted to note the account, we could do that here. So then we'll hit OK. We can see that it brings in all of that information, and if we wanted to easily transfer this to the build from to the shipped from, we can just hit copy, and it'll copy over our template here again, and we can simply hit OK, and then it brings it in here to the shipped from. Now this is all underneath the address info tab. So as we can see here, we have several different tabs that do a variety of different things. So if we come down to payment settings, we can set a specific account number for this vendor. So if we have an account number for them, or we have an account number for, or if they have an account number for us, we can put that information right here. Then if we had payment terms set up with that vendor, we could go ahead and set the payment terms here. So if we were net 30, we could just go ahead and set that to there. And then print name on checks. So if we're going to be printing a lot of checks to this vendor, then we can simply just say, hey, how do we want that name to be printed on the check? That's where this comes in. For Big John's, it pulls this from over here from the company name. And then if we have a credit limit with that vendor, we could set the credit limit here. And then if we had a billing rate level for that vendor, we could set that here. So let's say that this vendor gives specific discounts to wholesalers versus retailers, and let's say we're a wholesale person. We could put in our billing rate level here for wholesale, and then we could track that per vendor to make sure that we were getting the correct rates per vendor. Next, we have tax settings. So if we needed to get our vendor tax ID, we could go ahead and establish that here. And if our vendor is eligible for 1099 work, we can go ahead and select that here. And then finally, we can associate expense accounts to pre-fill for this vendor. So whenever we are creating a bill for this vendor, we can simply select what expense accounts we want this vendor to be associated with, up to 3. And then for the additional information, we can put a vendor type. So again, if we wanted to know what type of vendor this was, if it's a supplier, if we just get regular store supplies, if it's a retail store, something like that, any type of vendor quality that we wanted to track, we could do that right here. And this list is completely customizable, so we could add, remove, edit, anything like that that we wanted. And then if we wanted to track additional fields for the vendor, we can come over here to custom fields and we can hit define fields. Here we can create whatever custom field we want. So maybe we want to know, have we been with them for over 20 years? So we could say over, we'll shorten it. We'll say over 10 years. Over 10 years, question mark. And then we can associate this and we can use it for the customer, for the vendor, for the employee. What kind of data do we want to be shown? Pretty much any text is the best way to go with this. That way we can type in any data we want. If we choose one of these other formats down here, this is a rule essentially for what kind of data. So if we chose date and this was a date field, it would have to follow this exact dating procedure. If we try to do it with this one and we had this one selected, it would error out and it wouldn't accept it. So for now, we'll just say any text. And we'll say that it's not going to be used for customer, vendors, or employees. Well, we'll say vendors just so that it'll show up here for us. So if we hit OK, it's going to say that we have activated custom fields for the list elements. We'll go ahead and just say we don't want to see that again. We'll hit OK. And then we can see over here we have over 10 years, and we can simply select yes, that we have had this vendor for over 10 years. And again, custom fields can be anything we want. They don't have to be limited by questions or answers. They're literally just for tracking on a vendor specific. So we'll hit OK. And now we can see that we have Big John's vendor, Emporium. And we can see now that we have a balance total of $0. So the next thing we need to do is we need to purchase things from this vendor, and to do that we need items, and we need to purchase an item from this customer, or from this vendor. So what the first thing we need to do is we need to turn on inventory. So we can track a service that we provide, we can track a tangible good that we provide, we can track the inventory on that tangible good, so we can see how many we have in stock, what our current asset value is for what we have in stock, and then we can see what we've sold and what we've sold over time, essentially. So we can track that product and we can see exactly how it's selling, who's buying it, where we're getting it from, cost versus sales, and then of course, we can see our income and things like that from that item. So the first thing we'd want to do is turn on inventory. So the way that we get to pretty much all preferences is through the edit, preferences, and then we can see here that it defaults to the general. Now whenever this first opens up, we can see on the left we have all of our different categories for within the file and all the different preferences for those categories. Whenever we open up a category, we have two tabs. We have the My Preferences tab here, and then we have the Company Preferences tab over here. Now, a quick and easy rule is that whenever we're in My Preferences, we can change any of these that we want based off of a specific user. These are not company changing. They're not going to change preferences for other people. They're only specific to the user that is logged in currently. However, if we come over to Company Preferences on any tab, this is when we're making changes for everybody. So everybody in the file is going to see these changes. These changes are going to be completely across the entire file. In order to make company preferences, we need to either be an admin, somebody with admin-like rights, and we need to be in single user mode. So when I say we're in single user mode, that means nobody else can be in the company file, and we must be in the single user mode where nobody else is allowed in to make changes underneath the company preferences. Otherwise, if we were in multi-user mode and we come to the company preferences screen, we would just get a simple error warning that tells us that we need to be in single user mode to make any changes in this specific part of the company file. Now, To do the items and